off the BLERD official podcast. You know me. I am Karan Ashley. I am here. We are so excited to see all of you today. Hilton George, how you doing? Hilton,
Oh
you acting
man,
up
it's been
already,
so
honey.
long. I feel like it's been so long since I seen y'all. It's like,
You
it's been what,
know?
3 months? It's been three
Oh,
months. I lost track of my days. How y'all
I
doing?
know. It's always a long week when we don't see each other. I've always got
Yeah.
so many things to talk to you guys about, and I'm so glad you're here, Hilton, Mr. BLERD Con. That is coming up in May. I mean July. What am I saying?
July.
May. We're gonna see each other in May, but
We gonna
July
see.
BLERD Con.
We gonna
Yes.
wreck Atlanta in May. They got
Oh yes.
security.
Oh yeah. We got plans to make. Plans to make. We will all be at MomoCon in May. So you guys,
Yay!
if you're in the Atlanta area. Oh my gosh. And the girl with the hibiscus water, she wants to act like it's water. We know it's MD
With my
2020.
charm.
We know she's getting drunk because
No,
she can't deal with
not
us
today.
sober.
Mhm.
I just
Sleeping
woke
Beauty
up.
herself, Sleeping Beauty herself just woke up, was like, is it Tuesday? Oh my God. Christi Renee, how are you doing?
I am awake. I'm awake now
Yes,
because I showed up and y'all was talking bad about me. So
we are.
I'm on my toes at this point. Just
Yes.
gonna try to, nod really strongly. Yeah.
Nod. Yeah, you used to be like,
Uh-uh.
uh-huh,
You got to
yeah.
contribute. We about to jump into some of your stuff. We got
Right.
your show this time.
Oh,
That's right. I'm
Yes.
so
You
okay.
got to
So
excited.
guide the tour.
yes, we need a moment of silence because, okay, first of all, Christi Renee, her favorite shows are Handmaid's Tale and Station 11, which both shows are like gloom and doom, gloom and doom. Woo! Girl, if we didn't already get out of a pandemic, you done put me back in a pandemic. It was a beautiful show. Station 11 was the
Yes.
assignment. We had a few assignments, but this was the one that I spent the week watching. Actually still have 2 episodes to watch, but it pulled me in. It took a minute. I'm not gonna lie. I was like episode 1. I was like, what is Christy got us watching? And then episode 2, episode 3, it just took off. And man, really good acting, really good plot. I'm gonna let you set this up. So for those out there who have never watched the show, give them a brief synopsis of what Station 11 is about. Keep it brief because we'll dive in deep and we'll pull back the layers. Let them know what the show, if they haven't watched it yet, let them know what they're in for.
Okay. So real quickly, it's present day. It takes
Mhm.
place in, I would say, roughly 2016, 2017, something like that. And I could be wrong on that, but it's somewhere in that era. And a flu pandemic breaks out. But it's a matter of hours before you keel over and die. People don't turn into
Man.
zombies or anything like that, but it ravages the world. It's everywhere. And so there's a lot of moving pieces in this story, a
Mhm.
lot of intertwined lives and backstories, and it takes place in 2 separate times. So you'll do flashbacks, but it's
Yeah.
almost not like it starts out in the moment this all happens, and then we fast forward, and then we go back, and then we go forward, and we go back. But it's
Yeah.
to me, it's easy to keep up with once you learn the characters and all of the
Mhm.
diverse characters. I love the casting. It's incredibly diverse. And
Yeah.
it looks like the world. And
Yeah.
so the remaining people, as we move 20 years into the future, post pandemic, it feels apocalyptic, but it's not, because they make a new life. Basically, you just have to
Mhm.
pick up the pieces, and all these different characters. The center point of the story is humanity. That's what's
Right.
at the center of this. It is about humanity. It's about what happens when all of these things that we take for granted are destroyed. And so we still are humans and still here. And what do we do with that, and how we
Woo.
function? and rebuild. It's a rebuilding.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I like the way you put that, because really, Hilton and I were talking before you jumped on into the stream. It was Hilton, me, and Dana, and we were talking, and you mentioned, Hilton, like, it's like the flu happens, and like literally people get in there like, oh, you know, it's like
Right.
I think they said, yeah, it was like 1 in 1,000 survive. Right. So, you know, they have this, that at one point there was like a newscast and they're sitting there listening to it, and it says, you know, Chicago is not what it used to be. Now there's only 2.5 million people who are dead. So it's like, it just hit. And but that's not really the big event. Like, it's just, that is just like what sets off this chain reaction. And again, what I loved was what you said about humanity. It shows what people do in a crisis, and it was authentic. You know, you have people who handle it well, people who go into survival mode, people who just turn into monsters because, you know, the fate of their life, you know, they're staring at their fate. And there's one of the main characters is Kirsten, who is a little girl when we first meet her, and she's a little actress, and she's in a play. Yeah, she's 8 years old. And in her, the way that it opens is she's in a play and she witnesses like her mentor, Arthur, who is like her acting coach and all this stuff, and he dies of a heart attack, and it
on stage
in front of her, in front of a bunch of people, and it kind of just sends off this chain reaction. But she makes a friend, and it's just crazy, because when she makes his friend, I want to make sure I say his name, Himesh, that's his character name. Oh no, his name is Javon. Jeevan. She makes a friend, and it's so funny because he's just this random guy that witnessed Arthur dying. He was the first one to kind of notice, the one to kick into action. And then he sees her standing off the side of the stage. And then when everyone is leaving, he's kind of like, he just sees her standing outside by herself. And he like is like, little girl, how are you going to get home? And she's like, well, you know, I would have gone home with my, you know, her friend who left with Arthur. And so she's just kind of there. And he just in a second decides, I'm going to help this girl. But little did he know, you know, while he's trying to take her home, he gets this call from his sister, who is like a nurse or a doc. She's at the hospital, and she goes, barricade yourself in, go home to our brother and barricade yourself, because people are dying at record numbers. And he's like, he has this kid, and he's just like, okay, let's get supplies. They get supplies. And then I remember there's a part in the show where he tells his brother, we have a child now.
Hold on. We got to stop for a second, because I got to talk about the brother. I have told y'all this before. Like, I am obsessed with Frank. To me, he's such a developing character in this story. And he is, okay. So Himesh Patel plays Jeevan, and Niban Rizwan, I hope I'm saying his name right, plays. Girl,
you said it better than I would have.
Yes. Let me tell y'all,
amazing.
I'm gonna tell y'all the breakout moment in this, and he's been in other stuff, like they pretty much all have, but you don't realize it until after you see this thing that you fall in love with, right? And then you're like, you see 12 other things that these people were in. You're like, oh my God, that's from Station 11. Anyway, so Frank's character is a recluse. He's shut in. He's come up off of. He was. Oh my God, what was his?
He was injured. He was in Sudan. He was covering a
photojournalist,
and was hurt on site.
Right. And so now he walks with a cane and a limp, and his hip injury. Well, he's also developed kind of a drug addiction because of that pain, dealing with that. So anyway, that's kind of one of the backstories, underlying issues between the siblings. So we never see the sister. We never really.
We see her the first episode
real quickly in the hospital.
The first episode, and she's just standing there in the midst of
all the madness.
I mean, it's like
breaking
crazy.
down.
Like whatever we saw when coronavirus hit New York and hit China, it's like times 100.
Times 100, yes. Yeah. It's just chaos everywhere. And then that's all we see of her. So then this developing story between the two brothers, and just their upbringing and whatnot, that all comes down. But let me tell y'all the number one scene is, and I didn't know this
We're
about him
giving
until
spoiler alert. So
I know, right? Yeah, well, that's our show.
Yeah.
That's our
You
whole
know to
show
check
is
out
It's been
now.
out for months. It's been out
It's
for
been out
months.
for months. So
we
yeah,
really
we're
should
not
have a
spoiling
tagline
anything.
to the BOP is the spoiler show. Like, just don't be trying to watch us and we hide the facts. We're gonna bring it all
We
out.
gotta talk. We gotta dive deep into this stuff. We're gonna dive deep.
Nibon Rizwan, the actor who plays Frank, is actually Dana just sent us a hashtag. That's it. Hashtag spoiler alert team. Yes, I love it.
Yes.
That's so it. So he's an actual rapper. Also, he's model, he's rapper in real life. He's like 23 years old. He's just this kid that is just from, I forget where he's from. Oh my God, he's British. But he's
just dope person.
He's awesome.
Dope artist.
Anyway, he goes into this. His character is so far removed from their reality, now who he's stuck with, his brother who they hadn't gotten along really, and then his and this little girl, Kirsten,
they just met.
They come in with these 5,000 grocery baskets because he goes and buys the entire store up.
Hi, little white girl.
Right, hi, little white girl. That's the greeting. It's hysterical. But when he gets this recording, because then they have to go scavenging. You see months and months go by. And so when he gets that recording, and then he bursts into A Tribe Called Quest. And he does this he calls a meeting. It's like their family meeting at the table. Yeah. Like, I've got something, I've discovered something. And he's just this awkward, odd duck. Yeah. And I've got to show you this. And he starts to play this loop of this recording. And when he bursts out into full blown rap, like it's one of the dopest moments of the whole thing. And I was done then. I was done. I still cry.
I think it was the moment they all lost it. Like, they all were grieving.
And they just got into
it. And he needed a reprieve. I don't know if he was losing it more or if it was just, I've got to do something because what is happening?
It's one of those situations where when it's a messed up situation and you make a joke and you don't know which way the joke is going to go, if people are going to laugh or people are going to be mad at you, but he just took it and ran with it, and eventually they came with him. So it was
you couldn't resist. Yeah. You couldn't resist.
That's the thing about this show. It's a character show. It's character driven.
Totally.
Yep. Everything that we've talked about as far as pandemics and people dying and planes crashing, the decay of Western society, even the timeline, all of that is a backdrop to the individual development and evolution, some from good to bad, some from, mediocre to great, but they're all taking their own journey.
Yeah.
That's just the backdrop. I mean, I said, the pandemic, the flu that kills all the people is really, it just kind of, it starts the show.
Right.
And it's taken completely for granted. There is no drama of, we're going to find a cure and the CDC, none of that. It's all right. Everybody's gone and they're sequestered in this 47th floor apartment in Chicago, going into winter.
Right?
And which is very lucky because no one's going to walk up, at least we thought. Most people aren't going to walk up 47 flights. When the power goes out and all that. And he bought 17 grocery carts worth of groceries and managed to walk it up to his apartment, which I don't know how he did, but it's a really smart move that he did it.
Yeah.
And it's this character-driven story, and you get invested in the characters, and it's like a journey. It's like a modern-day Canterbury Tales. Like everybody's everyone's kind of got their own little journey, and we might see them in a little vignette. We might not even think they're important. And then 5 episodes in, they come back and they're like, that's that guy that was in the room when they were talking about this thing. And I didn't even think because he's 20 years older. Yeah. And that's how he knows these people, but doesn't know it because, circumstance. And you get caught up in who these characters are. You almost forget about the fact that there was a flu and everything like that. But you're just watching their journey. You're hoping they reconnect. You get so invested in their survival and their success. And like I said, the world is apocalyptic, but it's not like Walking Dead, and it's not, and it's actually not, to be perfectly honest, it's not that dark.
No,
I mean, it's not like marauding bands of cannibals and zombies and dead bodies everywhere,
I get into it because it also shows you, how resourceful you have to become. It's so revealing, I guess, and telling about if you don't have the cell phone, well, this is what you have to do. Or if you don't have electricity, this is how you do it. And it's just the writers just did such an incredible job.
It is
like you
amazing.
said, with the
Look for 'em
developing
some Emmys.
the development of the characters and just the infusion of culture. And what I love is it truly is, I think, there is no one antagonist or protagonist, right? So, or if there is, humanity is both of them, right? And so what we do with electronics, like you have the two different worlds. You've got this wannabe modern, forward thinking, electronic, digital type of, space at the airport, where they've created a whole world. And then you've got your traveling art body of art, I guess.
Theater,
it's the traveling theater troupe,
the
and
symphony.
it's the bard. And that's the art. We're constantly, which I think sends a great message, because art needs to be funded always and forever in everything, because it's part of our humanity. And I think that's what keeps us humane, is when we can artistically express, and when we can be creative, because it's going to take some creative minds to figure out how to clean water, how to rebuild something, how to just really just do anything if we didn't have all of the things that we have today. But it is a beautiful telling of, I know it feels dark, and I think a lot of people thought, oh my God, well, because it came out in the midst of a pandemic. It does. It's scary. It's frightening, because you imagine a plane flying, just falling out of the sky right in front of your apartment window.
And she's like, something bad's about to happen, and then the plane just comes in.
Could you imagine? That thing is so massive. Like even just to stand next to an airplane, just in general, is just terrifying.
Before we go any further, we should probably let people know that it is on HBO Max.
HBO Max.
Yes.
And I think it's still on HBO Max.
It's on HBO Max. I've been watching it.
We were complaining before you came on, because we were kind of complaining that it's a sleeper hit, because they didn't really promote it. There wasn't like this big push. There was no commercials.
No idea.
The queue just brought it up. That little private algorithm based on what you watch. And
like if you watch this, you might like this.
And I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, Station 11, and it's just got this picture of a girl's face.
She's like,
looking out, and I was like, did I click? Do I have enough time in my life to click this and see what's going on?
10 episodes.
I'm so glad I did.
And in true HBO form, it's a slow cook. It is a boiling pot of grits that you can't look at. You just got to go for the ride. You got to wait that first 30 to 45 minutes out before it really grabs you. It doesn't grab you in that first 5 minutes. Like a lot of people have very short attention spans. They want something blown up or somebody fighting.
You're obsessed.
You just gotta. Well, you get obsessed once you get in.
No. I'm speaking to that's one audience. There's another part of the world in the universe that is like me, and is like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with, what happens with when or if something, the world just kind of comes to an end. Like I'm in that audience.
Seen that. We've kind of already even though the world obviously didn't end, we saw how ugly things could get. We saw
empty shelves.
How we were getting misinformation. We were getting, how politically people would take over, and even now we're in the midst of, we're back to normal, and it's like the pandemic is still happening. The numbers are rising,
still developing.
New York, a bunch of cities, Miami, a bunch of cities are having really big outbreaks. The hospital cases are going through the roof, but people refuse to wear a mask. Like they're like, I was telling Dana before I came, I said, it's so weird, because I just went to 2 Comic-Cons, and it's like it never happened. And it's like there wasn't there was a handful of masks, and where just last year everyone had something on, but it was just kind of weird, because I remember I was talking to this one man who he was like, and this is like someone I've known for like probably 8 or 9 years. Like I see him every year. He's a volunteer at one of the shows, and he's just a tried and true volunteer. And I've gotten to know him. And he was like, I almost died. I had the coronavirus, and I was in the hospital for a month. They told me 3 times that I wasn't going to make it. Wow. My family came to say goodbye to me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank God. He goes, but you know what? coronavirus is over now, so we can all get back to life. And I was like,
hold up. What you talking about, Willis?
Right. And I was like, you had a near-death experience, and I said, it's over? I didn't get the memo. I didn't know that it was over.
Yes.
And he just was like, well, I caught it, and I've got these antibodies. And I go,
Lord.
But it just like, this show made me think of that moment, because it just shows how uninformed people are, or people will believe what they want to believe. Like, it's a matter of wanting to believe that things are okay. And one of the scenes in there, there's a group of people, and you later get to realize who this people is. And there's this little boy named Tyler and his mom, and we find out, the mom was married to Arthur, and Tyler is his son. Like, we later figure out who this is, and needless to say, they're in this airport, and they get the news, and there's a plane on the runway where they won't let people out of that plane, because they're like, if they come out, they'll get the rest of us sick. And so they're like, no, don't let them in. And so it's kind of one of those things where the airport and the people who are stuck in this small town have decided to create a city, and they're ready. If you break the rules, they've got their own system of government. How quickly we will create some rules and regulations just
Find
to
a leader.
save ourselves. Yeah. And needless to say, this little boy Tyler, he's just this dark character, and he goes out and is just sitting on like one of the jetways or whatever, and he sees someone come out of the plane, and he's like just as shocked as everyone else, and he goes to help this man who obviously did not die in that plane. Other people died in that plane. He survived, and he should be okay. He should be okay. And when he brings them in, they immediately shoot this man. Like, they were so scared, and they were like so territorial of, don't touch him. It was just weird, but it was like, it just really brought in, like, people believe what they want to believe. And like, we saw that with like the AIDS epidemic. We've seen that with the coronavirus. We've seen that with so many things where it's just a bunch of misinformation leading a certain group of people, and they don't want to learn. They don't want to know better. And
exactly. Yeah. The thing that struck me about this is that it resonates, because, I watched it like while we were still kind of on lockdown. It wasn't in the heart of it. I kind of picked it up toward the end of the summer. And I have always said about COVID that coronavirus is kind of like the apocalypse practice test. It's not so deadly that it's going to wipe out the earth. It's got a 3% kill rate. That's not horrible. It's just really, really, really.
It wasn't the one in 1,000.
Everybody's going to get it. Exactly. So I said, this would have been the test to show how we would have reacted to the next virus coming around. Because if there's almost any other virus, you think about Ebola, you think about bird flu, or any of these, even the flu. If the flu were as virus as COVID, as viral as COVID is, you'll be millions of people dead, all across the country, all around the world, more than what we have now.
Yeah.
And I said, we failed the practice exam.
Oh,
and what we're watching on this screen is the actual MCAT of apocalypse, because it's like,
great analogy.
It struck. It actually struck. Coronavirus snuck up for months. We're hearing about it, and it's over in Wuhan.
We had like a 3-month.
We're like, what? I'm hearing more about it, like a little build. These guys was like out at the theater, and then they go from that to like an hour later, people are dying in the street.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, the Spanish flu and the Black Plague and all that kicked in. And, we kind of like, we're not ready for that kind of virus. Like, that kind of virus would hit us exactly how it did in that show. If it hit, that's how it would be. There was no watching this as a fictional, they did something special that made it worse or made it better or something like that. I was looking at it like, no, that's pretty much how we do it. Everything I watched, I know people like almost every other person in there, but the thing that really sets this apart that we haven't touched on yet is this underlying fictional story about the spaceman.
That's what I was about to just bring up. The story.
That is the glue.
The author of the book. Yes.
The author of the book.
It's all surrounding
this book. What it is, though? What it is that the author of the book is even subject to that story in a way, because we're just weaving through this legend, because the show, it kind of tells us about the story and gives us visuals that are fantasy that we don't know are fantasy of this person in space observing the Earth, who's a part of this fictional graphic novel that becomes kind of like this weird de facto Bible.
Yes.
You know,
there's only
and then
6
we're
of them
meeting,
or something like that.
Yeah, and we're meeting this woman who is a writer, but not really a writer. And she's an artist, but not really an artist, who's kind of throwing these ideas out. And I'm like, the sketches are starting to look a little like these little fantasy vignettes that the show is doing over the course of like 14 episodes or something like that.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's real. And then we find out that she's the author. And then the story comes full circle. It's like it all comes together at one point. And the reality that is built around the world that's the post-apocalypse is actually hinged to a large degree on this fantasy book. You know, just imagine if somebody like this, the last surviving book that everybody was reading 20 years after the apocalypse was Lord of the Rings. You know, and then you watch what happens. Everyone's walking around like hobbits and elves, and you know, it's like
you believe what you want to believe in.
You believe what you want to believe,
you
and people
hold
bought
on to
into
whatever.
And I'm just like, that is such effective storytelling. That you got all these moving parts, and you got this story and this plot line that is moving really quick. Because just like Christi said, it's 20 years in the past, it's 20 years in the future. It's 20 years in the past, it's 20, and you almost don't know which is which until like they step outside, or you see if they got dirty clothes or something like that. And you just get totally caught up, and you get so invested in these characters. And look, I shed a few thug tears. I'm not afraid to say it, because I was just like, please. I mean, let's not give everything away. I know in that last episode, I was like, please turn your head slightly to the right and see this girl. I was like, just don't let this man walk away without seeing this woman. Oh my God!
Like I had to press pause and go. Let me just prepare myself. If they don't do,
seen
if
it,
they
I'm
don't,
so excited. No, I'm telling you.
But
don't spoil. No, dude, you are not spoiling for me because I'm 8 episodes. No, I'm 8 episodes.
So look at me. This is me walking on eggshells.
No. Do not. No, look. I would have said, guys, let's postpone it a week. But I'm 8 episodes in, so I'm gonna watch it.
You're committed. You're committed. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna see this play out because I'm just like, okay, what's gonna happen to her? Okay, what happened to him? Okay, where did this person go?
Yeah,
I'm just like,
that's definitely the spoil there.
Yeah,
that is the only thing you can really know.
I don't know who you said. This guy, this woman. I have no idea.
That's why
I have no idea.
Threw it out there. I knew to step on that egg real lightly.
No, but you aren't spoiling for me.
I was just about to get it all in too.
Yeah, no, but this is the thing. I think what I love, like you said, another thing that I really love was the soundtrack, because it's like it almost has like horror. It almost has like a horror feel at times, and I was like, is something gonna be scary? Like, is there really a zombie? And then there's nothing, but it's just, it puts you in this place, this anxious place, this dark place. And then you have some humor that comes out of nowhere. Like you said, when the brother started rapping, you're like, well, I needed that.
But you don't even think about it as part of the soundtrack because it's woven so deftly into the script. You forget that, like, magical. Oh, wait, like this is a produced song being played in real time when we know Funkmaster Flex isn't right off screen queuing it in. They're just so into the spirit. This is probably how they feel and what they hear. And we're allowed into that little vignette, and we share the emotion, even though we know it's not 100% real. It's a dope rap, it's a dope beat, and it's a Tribe Called Quest. So if you know them, you know the song.
Yeah, you know the song. Like
you know, and you're like, where the hell did this come from? Like,
it's the best. It's
in the middle of nowhere, like,
he just like heard someone talking, and he like heard the loop, and he was like, that sounds like something. That sounds like, and
he made it what he was hearing, what was in his spirit. But let me tell you, Karen, you're gonna be floored when you get to the
I'm
end.
finishing it today. Like, I'm literally invested.
So you are aware that a part of the Traveling Symphony, we have the beautiful Deborah Cox.
Yes, I noticed her immediately, and I was like, "That's Deborah Cox,
baby." When I tell you, when I tell you they utilize her, they utilize her in the last episode. You're gonna love it, like the weeping. So that one scene that Hilton was just talking about, like. Oh, it's just oh my gosh, my hair just
you got chills. I know, but see, that's the thing. It's almost like all of you who watch it, it's a sleeper. Like it's a slow drip, and then the next thing you know, you're completely invested, and then it just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and you're like, why am I like?
And
I
then
told my
you're
husband, I
all
was
going to
like,
turn into Christy. You're going to start calling people.
And
You're going to call your relatives.
you're gonna start. No. You're gonna start.
"We saved up
You're
some
gonna
money for
start
you, Chris."
googling. You're gonna start googling the writers and directors and tweeting them to
Oh,
keep going, because
guys,
it's a limited series.
the best thing about this show, if you're watching it on HBO Max, when the credits come on, let them play. Don't skip to the
Yes.
next episode, because the writers and producers give you a recap of each episode. And I love those recaps, because they explain stuff that you don't always get everything when you're getting a story, you know, especially a story that's so intricately detailed and laid out like this story. So you kind of want to get those recaps, because they give you these nuggets, and you're like, okay, now I got to go back and watch the episode again, because I totally interpreted that a different way, and I need to see it. So those recaps are the best.
Yes.
To your point, this is something I've said about other shows and other movies that we've reviewed and talked about. I really enjoy movies that take a chance on the audience. You know, it's not like a Michael Bay movie with Transformers and robots and explosions and half-naked girls screaming, just grab your attention, grab your attention, grab your attention. They're like, no, we're going to tell an intricate story.
Yes.
We're going to do some really deft, intricate plot development. We're going to do this artfully. We're going to do this methodically, and we're going to draw you in. And like I said, once you get to that point where, you know, you're invested in the music, like I was listening to the music, trying to think about what instruments were being played, and I couldn't pick anything out. I was like, is that a kazoo? Is that a hooter?
They
is that
say
a recorder?
symphony. And I love that they called themselves a traveling symphony, because the music is very symphonic. Like it's like you said, they're using all kinds of instruments. And it's like,
they're putting rocks in jars, or you know, rubber bands across 10 plates.
It sounds you gotta make stuff. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas in places where you're like, is that a rubber band being snapped in the background?
But isn't it
like,
perfect
I mean, it really,
for a post-apocalyptic situation where there probably weren't instruments? So they were like, we have to make sure the music sounds like you're in this world.
It's not John Williams, y'all.
They left no stone unturned as far as creating the world and the sound and the look, and you know, if nothing else, see where Kristen is a G.
Kirsten
is a G.
Yeah, Kirsten is.
G.
She is. She's
a good little actress, and she's a killer.
And the woman is. Yeah,
and for a post-apocalyptic movie or show or series, I often get disengaged when I see people especially like shows like The Walking Dead, which is a whole other thing. When people make dumb decisions in horror movie scenarios, that's where I disengage. I can't go along in the ride with you if you're gonna. What's that noise? And down that dark alley. Well, let's go check it out. Every person here, even when they make bad decisions, I understand why they made it.
Right.
Like I'm like, okay, you got killed because you saw a child and you didn't see a threat, and therefore the child was used to kill you by someone else because you were a human being.
Right.
And I don't know that I would have looked at a child and said, oh, there's a threat there, I'm not going to save that child. Like, who would have even thought that things could go that route? So I understand. So people are not getting into bad situations or getting out of good situations because they're not making these choices that are just manufactured to move a horror plot or apocalyptic plot forward. These are people who are reflecting of you and me. And it's like, I understand that reaction. It may look crazy in the moment, but I know that character. I know what she's been through. I dig why they're out there screaming and yelling and acting crazy, because this is what we do as human beings, and there's no way around it. And that's why you stay engaged.
Yeah. And they did such a good job, because they didn't paint everybody as like it's extremes of every kind of reaction you would have if you were put in this situation. So like you said, you've got this whole like group of kids that bond together and become this whole little like family, because they obviously need to survive. They obviously are dealing with the trauma that, you know, they were born into this world. They ask like funny questions. They go, oh, was the internet real? Because, you know, this is obviously like the world took a cataclysmic cataclysmic change, and everything we know and we're comfortable with is just a myth to them. So they're like, what was it really like, you know? And so I love that, because like some characters are good, some characters are bad, and but when you really get to know them, they almost give you a glimpse into all of these different characters, and you realize even the ones that you think are bad, you realize why they're that way, because they are dealing with the trauma of the world ending, pretty much.
You care about them too. Yeah, even in
who
all
knew? The big bad scary people are interesting and sympathetic. Like, wow, like, wait a minute, I'm waiting to be afraid of you. I'm waiting to root against you. But there's like everyone's got this glimmer of humanity that is eminent, that is unmistakable. And that's why you're invested. By the time you get in, like, you know, Karen's on episode 8 right now. Yeah. You know, you're sitting here keeping track of like 16 people. Yeah. You're like, oh, security guard has value at the airport because he just so happens to have training in engineering and therefore is useful making solar panels. And you know, and now he's in this relationship with this person and they're in love, and you're like, oh, okay, everybody, there's no throwaway characters here. If you're
no throwaway characters.
You're you know.
That's a really hard thing to do too, and she's really good too.
You probably haven't if you haven't gotten to this part, but I love that they foreshadow, you know, again, how life goes on and new life comes into play. And so when we see Jeevan, again, when I talk about the ideal,
I've been waiting for Jeevan, like
story,
I'm like, what happened to him?
Listen, the ideal character development is he's it. He is it. He is the poster boy of, you know, character development and how he transforms. Really? And when this thing gets to the makeshift like birthing center, and there has to be new life. Like you can't just, you know, go on. And it's 20 years later. So clearly, and there's little kids. So clearly, like you were just talking about,
having kids.
Somebody's having some babies. But
I wanted to say though, just before we get off of it, Jeevan, as you were saying, Christy, remember in the first episode, he rushed the stage when the guy had the heart attack, and had no training. So he just stood over him like he was trying to help. He wanted to help, but that wasn't his background, because people were like, "Are you a doctor? Are you?" He's like, "No, I don't know how to do compressions or any of that stuff."
But he knew how to recognize the sign. He was like,
he knew how to care.
He's having a heart attack.
Right, exactly. He knew how to care, and that ended up being his superpower.
That's what saves our lives.
Saves a lot of lives, including his own.
When you think about all those people who were outside that theater, episode 1, and little Kirsten is standing there. No one even thinks to go, "Hey, little girl, are you okay? Where's your parents?"
And
he's the only one who goes. And he go and then when he realizes like her parents are like, he knew like her parents were gone. You know, and that scene threw me. Oh, it was terrible. Just the way they did it. It was really good. But when he knows even before that, because she's texting them and she's not hearing from them. They went to the house, they knocked on the door, nobody's answering. So he already is like, oh my God, the world is ending around us. But he instantly goes, we have a kid now. Like she's ours. Like
period.
The parental, that caring.
It's what it is. It's what it is.
That caring kicked in. Yeah.
Well, I would say this just to kind of wrap it and say, because and listen, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we're going to have to do a 20-minute recap when you're done.
We totally can. I'll be done tonight. Like, but if I didn't have 2 Comic-Cons like back to back and like traveling and auditions and like, I've been like every day I'm like, okay, what do I do next? Okay, what do I do?
I would say this. The writers, again, Hilton, you hit it, the point right there. The writers took they trusted the reality of humanity. And that's what we need so much of. I appreciate that. I mean, a good action flick is great. But again, I'm obsessed with what happens if, like, I'm serious. Like, I'm going to write that.
We know you are. We are
saving trying to be prepared.
We feel like you need
I'm gonna save y'all's lives.
You need like just a whole day of,
you know what? Okay, that's right. When it hits,
I was like, this girl bringing the deep dark show. Like,
y'all gonna that's your fault, Chris, because you put out 2 really dark, what do they call it? not apocalyptic shows, but like dystopian future
dystopian
shows back to back. And we're like, do we need to do an intervention on one of these episodes? Just kind of like bring somebody in, like
this means, you know what?
We'd like to cue in someone who cares about you.
Okay, I know I got some fans out there. I know I got some fans. So I don't have as many as they do.
I love it.
I don't have as many as they do. But I'm gonna talk to my people, my folk. Listen,
we are your people.
Y'all think I need therapy? Let me tell y'all, I'm gonna be the one to save lives.
Well, we all do need.
We gotta know.
Yeah, we all need therapy, right? Yeah.
But I'm saying, I really look at these. Somebody's awake and somebody's paying attention, and that's what I love. And I love to see it again artistically expressed, because art imitates life, imitates art.
Oh man,
it's a fact. It's a fact.
There are many times you're watching this show and you go, okay, I think that's really happening in our
I know.
world.
Look out the window. Like, I need to look out the window real quick and make sure I'm in this reality versus that one. But again, I just think there is so beautifully done. I love a well-written script that's so realistic. It's like I can actually have a conversation while they're conversing. I too am in the conversation.
I'm with you 100%,
beautiful.
Christi,
I'm with you 100%.
The writers and the producers and even HBO deserve laudits for putting this out, because I imagine this is not a normal script. This is not a normal show. It took a lot of investment and everything. But I'm also going to slap them on the back of the hand for saying you go through all of this to produce this amazing show, and you don't do any promo for it. There's no commercials. There's no articles. There's a whole PR arm of your.
This deserves some marketing dollars.
It does.
It shouldn't have been something that we just
accidentally
heard from you or accidentally stumbled upon HBO Max.
And that's how I found it. I stumbled upon it, and then. But I'm gonna tell you this. I stumbled upon it. I passed over it, but I did see something. I did see some advertisement, but it was after it was, and I watched this after you, Hilton. So, because you watch. Well, let me see. I don't know. Time is a blur. I could have watched it. I could have watched it late summer. You know what? I think it was around the same time, because it's been a minute. But my point is, I right now I'm okay with it. I'm gonna tell you what I'm not okay with is the fact that it's a limited series and they're still trying to figure out if they're ever going to do anything else with it. And I'm like, no, we got more to talk about.
I'm fine with that, though.
They're on my list.
No, let me tell you.
I know that there are shows that I love and that you love. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Some stories go full circle. Right. And they do it well and do it perfect. Now, if they did a cliffhanger, like as if they we're going to do this so we can do another season, and then they don't do it, then I'd be mad. Like,
but let me tell you,
hanging. But they really did a great job sewing it up.
But I think there was no, and I
can like no because
well, let me tell you why. I think we opened up the show with the cliffhanger. There's 6 more books out there. She only published, what was it? It's either 4 or 6
the
more
character
books.
in the book or in the
the
movie?
Writer.
Or the
Remember,
writer?
the writer published. She published 6 to 8 books only. That's it. And so 2 copies of this book, of Station 11. We already know who holds 2 copies, right?
Right. We know that Kirsten and we
Where
know
are the other 4?
That Taylor have,
I want to say it's 6 copies. I have to go
back.
Wait.
Let me
is
just
it
to be clear.
Copies of the same episode or different stories?
Is this a real book we're talking about that exists in Amazon, or is it in the story?
Oh, it is. Station 11 is a real book,
right? But there's not 6 other Station 11 books.
No. What I'm talking about, I'm talking about in the character, Lord. I'm in the film.
Okay.
I'm in the show.
I got excited because I was like, oh, there's more books. The story is already written.
No.
Shut up.
This is Miranda Carroll is the character.
Miranda, yes.
Miranda.
And
wonderful actress.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
She writes this one book. It takes her years. She's totally attached to it. I never wanted anybody to see it. Like, she was very protective. I got 2 kids that act just like that, and I'm trying to say, you need to sell some of this because we need to make you a little coin. But they're, she's very attached to it. She only prints like 6 copies. We know who has 2, the 2 kids, Tyler and Kirsten. So my question is, we learned that very early on. Well, if these two kids end up growing up in two different worlds, two different spaces, then they come together. Well, we still have a few more copies where we haven't seen all of the world. I feel like there's a couple of others. And let me say this, it doesn't have to stop there, whether they wrote this or not in our real life, in our metaverse. Because just like another show that I love that y'all keep talking about me bad about is The Handmaid's Tale. There's only The Handmaid's Tale.
What,
they
you
take
like The Handmaid's Tale? I don't think I've heard it.
Wait,
that
when we talk, wait,
good.
y'all not gonna be ready
so
for
good.
when we unpack that. I'm gonna be in full costume. I told y'all.
A 6-episode series of this show on The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, and I'm gonna be in
We
costume
need
every
like
single
a whole
time.
Don't do that.
dedicated to The
I am.
Handmaid's
Don't do that. You
Oh,
freak me
I'm
out. You freak me out.
Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself.
Be
Prepare
ready
yourself.
to
Look,
be
I'm gonna
freaked
have my
out.
camera off. It's gonna be like an H that
Prepare
pulsates when I talk, because I'm sitting on my phone talking like this in the corner.
Listen,
I can't
The
look at.
Handmaid's Tale is so.
If y'all follow me,
oh
y'all know that's how
I don't even like Handmaid's Tale cosplay. I mean, I like them, but I see them and I'm like, ooh, that's dark.
Yeah.
So I marched
You're
last
actually
October.
wearing it. Like,
yeah, last October I marched in the Women's March, and that's what I wore in full character. And when I dress up, I'm in
full
character. Oh, I'm
Chris,
I'm
you
Oscar
traumatizing
award
people.
worthy.
You're over here traumatizing people out here in this world.
They
That's
love
not
it.
what you're here for.
And
You're
she
here to
lives
heal.
in Texas,
No.
where it's like the Handmaid's
No.
Tale is slowly unraveling in Texas with them.
You said I'm here to heal.
You're here to heal.
Hilton,
You're just
the first
freaking
thing
people out.
that just made me think of
place, Christy.
Did y'all watch SNL this weekend? And when our guy, oh my God, Carmichael, when he started talking about in his opening, he was like, Lorne Michaels comes to him and says, "We need you to heal," and he's like, I just came out gay 48 hours ago. Like, how am I supposed to heal the world? And the end of his opening on SNL was, I have one message for one person out there. And he turns to like camera B and he starts talking to Barack Obama. I have a message for you. You need to heal the world. Right. But it's like, he's like, that's the person you tell to heal. So Hilton, baby, I'm not here to heal the world. That is not what I'm here to do.
He's got the tools to do that.
Shock value. Exactly.
That's not my calling.
I'm here for, that's not my calling. I'm a shock factor. I bring the shock.
You want to do the Howard Stern stuff here in the world.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. But here's the thing.
Yeah,
we can keep going with this. Like Station 11 can keep growing because again,
I don't think so. I think if they get it wrong, like I said,
it's so developing.
It's like Game of Thrones. We watched Game of Thrones season 1 and we were like, oh, this was really kind of dope what they're going to do with the story. And then someone said, there's 4 of the books out there. We're like, what? And so they had it for us already written. They just had to put it on screen.
But when they ran out of that book,
when they ran out of that book, that's a whole other show.
I'm trying to get all
but for this, I think the problem is that you have a really, really good show that sewed up so many of the points that we were tied into, that if they force us back into that world without an equally compelling, if not more compelling story, you end up with one of those sequels that's like half as good and then another one that's half as good, and it's just these diminishing returns. And it's like the Seinfeld thing. Seinfeld signed off at the top of its game because Jerry felt like we've kind of said everything we're going to say, we've done everything we're going to do. So as much as I would watch it, I would be more concerned that like at some point this thing is going to make a left turn. Because
I don't think so. I'm gonna tell you why. Because The Handmaid's Tale didn't, and The Handmaid's Tale book, the book in the 80s, it ends. Margaret Atwood brought that book to a close, but yet when she joined the staff for writing on the actual show, they have drawn that shit out. Like,
well, see, that's the difference. They didn't do this with Station 11. They actually wrapped it up. Now, if they had gone in and said, hey,
like,
you know what, we're going to write it so that we have the option for another season or whatever, we could have probably felt it, and then we'd probably see it in the news too. But I don't know that they've done that.
We didn't even see the first one in the news.
See, it's the same reason why they don't have another Lovecraft Country coming out. And I keep explaining this to Black people. I know y'all had a great time. I know it was awesome.
That's the
book. The book's done. Like the book's done. The stories come full circle, and anything else would just be Tales from the Hood or Tales from the Crypt, or they would just be throwing fan service onto the screen, and you wouldn't like it.
It was
And so I'm not mad that one of my favorite shows of the last 5 years, Lovecraft Country, isn't coming back, because I'm like, you know what? They told their story. It's as good as it could have possibly been, and there's no open-ended strings that they could just.
Well, they left it open though. I felt at the end of Lovecraft, like they left
it was
it open
a little open. Yeah.
Aisha had a whole season 2 ready. And HBO just didn't go there.
See, that's the thing. So
well, I think the reason for that, other than what I was just saying, is that the cast is just blown up so much.
Oh yeah,
trying to pull them all back together, like Jonathan Majors. You can't book Jonathan Majors for nothing. The Rapture is gonna have to call his agent before they pull him to heaven. He's that busy.
In the Creed 3 streets.
Yeah, he already doing Creed 3. See now, we're not doing that.
Well, he's doing Marvel. He's doing Creed 3.
Y'all already. Look, as the man on this show, I gotta keep that part of the show on the rails. People going, because those pictures came out, and it's just the biggest thirst trap I've ever seen. I'm like, all these comments, ain't no plot, no storyline, no leak, just pictures of John Majors at 2% body fat, and there's a whole 10,000 comments.
I already bought my tickets. I already bought the pre-sale tickets. That's what they knew what they was doing.
She buying tickets to the theater that she think is gonna be in, just so she can get in the door.
Yeah, I just
you know, one of them people that skip around like, oh, these not my seats, my bad. Let me move over. Oh, this not my seat, my bad.
I already bought pre-sale tickets that aren't even pre-sold, that aren't even available yet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, guys. Yeah. So if you have not seen Station 11, go watch it, because it's so good. It's on HBO Max. It's thought-provoking. It's timely for what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
It's just like really good characters. If you like a character-driven show, this is the show for you. And like they said, the story and the plot, and it's like the person you see in episode 2 and you just thought that was someone passing through.
Random.
They become so important in episode 8 or 9, and you're just like, what just happened? But it really is just telling of like what we would do if the world was really ending, and it gives you the good, the bad, the ugly. And so if you're into that, I'm into it. Watch it. It's very, very good. It's very good, but it is a slow drip. So it's one of those, give it time to pull you in. Definitely give it time. We got some other stuff to talk about today, but
Station 11 deserved a whole hour.
It did.
And we're gonna go back. We're gonna circle back around when you actually finish it, because I can't wait to get your reaction to
we was gonna talk about Moon Knight, but we got so caught up in this.
Well, y'all know I ain't watching.
I know. Well, you know what, Moon Knight, we just got the first episode, so we just got a glimpse of where this series is going. And quickly, Hilton, are you intrigued? Were you impressed with Moon Knight?
Yes, and I think, and when Christy gets around to seeing episode 1, I think you're gonna like it too.
What's it on? Remind me.
It's on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the really cool thing about how they're telling the story. It's kind of like Chris Nolan with Memento. We are fully in the mindset of the main character, who has multiple personalities, right? And so the character we're introduced to is one of his personalities named Steve, and Steve is not aware that he has other personalities. He's like this really kind of nerdy,
he's a store clerk.
He's a store clerk. He works at the museum, a London museum of Egyptian history or something like that. And he just finds himself in the middle of this intrigue, and he has what are known as like night terrors or night walking, sleepwalking. So he has to, tie himself to bed, tether himself to a post. He's got sand. Around the bed, so you can see if he's got footprints, if he was sleepwalking. And this is a real disorder.
Yeah.
It's a real disorder, and so it's being treated with that kind of respect. And if you're not familiar, this is the funny thing. If you're not familiar with Moon Knight, you're probably going to get more out of this first episode because you're not like, oh, he's got all these different personalities. You don't really know. Yeah. And what happens is that he just blacks out. And then he wakes up in the middle of these crazy situations. Like, he'll black out again, and he'll wake up and he's surrounded by a bunch of bloodied, knocked out people who were trying to assault him.
He's got blood, so he
doesn't know what's going on. And he's almost like, if you took Jerry Lewis, kind of like in The Nutty Professor, but took away the comedy, he's like a Jerry Lewis character. He's got the flooded, pants with the socks and he's walking all funny, but he's also this badass. And it just really kind of takes you from a first person perspective. We're trying to figure out what's going on. He's trying to figure out what's going on. We're just as lost as he is. But then at the end, you get the payoff and you're like, okay, episode 1, this is what you waited for. And it's really, really well done.
Yeah.
And Oscar Isaac is actually one of the producers, I just found out, of the series. And he's like a Marvel maven. Like he's like a superhero maven. He's played Apocalypse in the X-Men franchise, the Disney franchise and Star Wars. He played Poe. So you're gonna see this guy's face and go,
this
I
is
know
the
that
best
guy.
I've seen him though. Like I think this is the one character where he gets to be like, you literally see him be vulnerable. You see him be like, like, where am I? What's happening? And and he goes and like you said, he's got this multiple personality disorder and he keeps hearing voices and it's like, Steven, just let me save you. And it's like,
rewind.
He doesn't realize that that's coming from him. He doesn't realize that there's someone else.
Going on.
And it isn't until that last scene you get a glimpse, and it's like,
it's 1978 all again with Superman with Christopher Reeve, and it was a revolutionary story to tell. Where the first almost hour of the movie, nobody sees Superman. And that was really a studio contention. People were like, wait a minute, he's not going to start flying from the second minute. Like, no, we're going to tell the story of Krypton. Then we're going to tell the story of Clark Kent in Smallville. And then we're going to, build up. Okay. So it builds up the same way. So we're not really seeing Moon Knight in this episode. So bad stuff is happening. And there's some really great actors that you're going to recognize in this. I don't have his name. Ethan Hawke is playing a very creepy David Koresh cult leader guy who has like these mysterious powers, and he's got these followers that just kind of come out of nowhere, like Legion of Justice and stuff. Like, whoa, these people just really secretive. And he's going to be doing some big stuff. So I highly recommend watching it. It draws you in. It tells you nothing, and then it just
gives you.
And it's scary and it's dark.
I love it.
It has feels of horror. Like it literally has.
That's right up my alley.
You're gonna love it. And like I was watching, and of course I'm watching it in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, and I'm like,
exactly. It's the only way.
Scene with the hallway. I mean, that was straight out of Stephen King. Like,
it's totally like the dark hallway. You see something in the mirror, and he's like, I mean, it gives you action, it gives you horror, it gives you superhero, and but it's done really well. So me too, Hilton. I'm in. I was impressed. I love Oscar Isaac. I feel like he's got so much to work with in this character. I love Ethan Hawke. So I'm super excited about Moon Knight, and we're going to give it.
Only 6 episodes.
It's only 6. Yeah, that's it.
Total.
Episode 1 is out on Wednesdays.
I'm watching that today.
You get a new one. You get a new episode every Wednesday, so you can watch episode 1, and then tomorrow you'll have episode 2.
Okay.
So yeah. Oh man, but
I love that.
Yeah, we'll come back to Station 11, and we're gonna come back to obviously Moon Knight because we've got 6 episodes to work through. But I did want to talk about it and just give our initial reaction. I'm so excited about Moon Knight.
And let me say this, I just appreciate that we have this platform, number one, to talk about, some of I couldn't find anybody that looked like me that was talking about Station 11. I found groups on TikTok. And I was like, but it still ain't nobody like me. So I started blowing up the groups. I was just like, I'm going to start. Right. And I'm brand new to using my voice on TikTok. I usually duet and react or, put up my own little videos, but I don't really talk a lot. So I've only done like 2. And I was like, I'm starting a new Station 11 or just the shows like that I feel like in our culture. I don't know. I don't know if maybe people are sitting around like me, like, can I tell everybody that this is what I like and this is what I love?
No, it's
whatever.
Good.
I'm excited that we're here and we get to bring that here. So this is great. I'm thankful. Thank you.
I know
something like The Handmaid's Tale too.
I know we joke and we play, but we're right there with you. I'm into just a piece of work that makes you think.
Yes.
And I'm into seeing how humanity decays and how there's hope and how just like we destroy ourselves every single time. I mean, you look at the history of this world, we destroy ourselves Every
time.
single time we fail, but somehow there's a spark of hope, and we lift ourselves up and we build anew. So no, I was all about this show. And the acting was so good. So you know me, I'm obsessed with actors, and I'm obsessed with performances, and I'm like studying them and like, oh, I gotta learn how to do that.
There's a stereotype out there that Black people don't like, introspective, thoughtful, well written,
Well, think
media
about Lovecraft.
like
think about Lovecraft when it came out, and it was this horror-driven, deep story. I mean, it had layers. It's sci-fi. They were like, they didn't think that it would do so well, and then it exploded. It was the biggest show a couple summers ago, and it was like, and people, like, I remember having conversations, and people were like, I'm shocked that a Black show or kind of a Black cast is doing sci-fi so well. And I'm like, hold up, did you hear what you just said?
Right.
Exactly.
Into who?
Exactly.
Like, we don't know sci-fi? Like, come on. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's almost like our own, that when you talk about systemic racism or whatever, you think that way because we've never been given the chance. Exactly. And you didn't even realize we'd never been given a chance.
You look at the movies where we weren't there.
Yeah.
So it's like you see us, we're not in the movies, we're not getting the opportunities, or historically didn't have the opportunities to produce them and direct them. And then the stereotypes about Black people, being scared of stuff. I mean, we joke about it too. But, I know a lot of horror heads. I know a lot of sci-fi heads who are Black. And as long as stories are good and well told, we're out there in the fandom. And that's one of the representation pieces to the puzzles. Like, are we in the fandom? Are we watching the shows? Are we talking about the issues? Are we lifting up the writers and producers and actors? Are we following them? Are we making note of, what the person who did the soundtrack, put a pin in that, and that's what the studios look at. Like, wait a minute, we got a Black fan base for this show that wasn't specifically written about and for Black people. Like,
Hollywood can't ignore the BLERD Black. They can't ignore minority dollars. I think they are finally realizing that we bring in, so much revenue, and they can't not represent us, and they can't not tell stories that we're in and that we create. And I, right now we're kind of in a time where we're seeing a lot of producers and writers that are creating content, and they can't ignore us. And even though I remember a friend of mine, we were talking, and they go, it's so weird. Like, it was around the Hollywood is so white kind of phase. They still are, but we were in the beginning of where people were actually saying that out loud, and it was almost like the chant. But they were like, it's funny because Hollywood, they can think of a world where there are dragons flying around and there are vampires and there are all but they can't see us. Like, we can't even
like
be
riding the dragon.
That's the real science fiction. A Black person surviving more than 20 minutes into a horror movie. Like, like, whoa.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
But that's so true.
But you know what? But again, we're
here.
We're here.
And I love it. And that's my point. I just wanted to, this is the executive decision that whenever these kinds of films in the mix with everything else that we review or we talk about or promote or boast, celebrate, like, we got the space, the platform. We need to start. We got to get some of these people on here. I'm about to go crazy tagging and stalking people.
Right. We'll get some
on social media to say
we was thinking, like, we should do some.
We was talking about you today.
Yes.
We need to get some.
I know. I was like, gosh, this show, like, the world needs to watch it, and we need to I'm surprised. We stumbled upon Station 11, but if you haven't watched it, stumble upon Station 11, and then stumble upon the BOP, because we are here every Tuesday, the BLERD official podcast. We thank you for watching. We thank you for talking with us.